Before we get to the story, I'd like to say thanks so much for visiting the channel. I'm going to be uploading alternate history horror stories exploring the darkest possibilities of what could have been. So if that sounds good, please drop a like and don't forget to subscribe. It means a lot, especially as the channel continues to grow. I hope you enjoy the story. My name's James Miller, and I've worked night security at Braddock Tower for a little over 6 years. Long enough that most nights blur together into the same slow, uneventful walk through the same empty hallways. Corporate buildings at night aren't scary the way people imagine. They're boring. Fluorescent lights humming in empty offices, elevators that occasionally chime on their own. Nothing that actually keeps a man awake through a 9-hour shift except habit and coffee. The 4th floor had one section I never liked much, a stretch of hallway past the old records department that dead-ended at room 4C, a decommissioned server room that had been sealed up and taken off the building's active systems back before I even started this job. The keypad outside it had been dead for years, and according to the maintenance logs I'd read once out of boredom, the room itself had been physically welded shut on the inside during a renovation, the door frame filled in and drywalled over so completely that unless you already knew a room used to be there, you'd walk right past it, assuming it was just another stretch of blank wall. I walked past that stretch of wall probably 4 times a night, every night, for 6 years, and nothing about it had ever once given me reason to think twice. Last Tuesday changed that. It was somewhere past 2 in the morning. Dead quiet the way that floor always was at that hour, my flashlight beam sweeping its usual lazy arc across a hallway I could have walked blind if I needed to. I was maybe 20 feet from that sealed section when I saw movement ahead of me, and I want to be clear that my first thought wasn't fear. It was mild irritation. The kind you feel when you think someone snuck into a building they don't belong in and you're about to have to deal with the hassle of it. Then I actually processed what I was seeing, and irritation dropped out of me entirely. A man was stepping directly out of the wall where room 4C used to be. Not through a door, because there wasn't one. Hadn't been one in years, just solid drywall and paint sitting flush against a filled frame. He came through it the way you'd walk through an open doorway, unhurried, like the wall wasn't there at all, like solid material simply hadn't registered to him as an obstacle worth acknowledging. I stopped dead in the hallway, flashlight beam locked on him, my hand already moving toward my radio on pure instinct before my brain had caught up with what I was actually looking at. "Hey," I called out, keeping my voice as steady as I could manage. "This is a restricted area. I need you to identify yourself." He turned towards me slowly, and in the beam of my flashlight, I got my first real look at him, and something about it was wrong in a way I couldn't immediately name. He looked like an ordinary man, maybe 40s, wearing clothes that didn't match any current style I could place. Not old-fashioned exactly, just slightly off, like clothing designed by someone who'd only seen photographs of what people wear and never quite gotten the details right. "You can see me," he said, and his voice carried a strange flatness to it. Surprise, without any of the normal inflection surprise usually comes with. "Course I can see you. Stop where you are." I keyed my radio. "Dispatch, this is Miller. 4th floor. I've got an unauthorized individual near room 4C. requesting backup. The radio gave me static in response. Nothing but empty hiss, where dispatch should have answered within seconds, the way they always did. Dispatch, copy? More static. I tried again, my eyes never leaving the man standing in that hallway, and got nothing but the same dead air. "It won't work here," he said, and there was something almost apologetic in how he said it. "Not this close to where I came out. Signals don't carry right." "Where you came out," I repeated. "You mean the wall. You just walked through a solid wall." He looked back at the section behind him, that flat, unremarkable stretch of drywall, with an expression I can only describe as mild confusion, like he genuinely wasn't sure what part of that statement I found strange. "That's not a wall where I was. It's a hallway, long one. I've been walking it a while." "That doesn't make any sense." "No," he agreed, "it doesn't. Not from where you're standing. I understand that." I want to explain what was going through my head in that moment, because 6 years of mostly uneventful night shifts don't prepare a person for a conversation like that one. Every instinct trained into me said this was a threat to assess and contain, an intruder to control until real backup arrived. But something about him, the flat surprise, the genuine confusion at my confusion, made him feel less like a threat and more like someone as disoriented by the situation as I was, which somehow scared me worse than aggression would have. "Stay right there," I said, drawing myself up and stepping closer. Close enough now to see details I hadn't caught at a distance. His skin had a texture to it that wasn't quite right, too smooth in places, subtly uneven in others, like something built to resemble a person rather than actually being one. And his eyes, when the flashlight caught them directly, didn't quite track the way eyes should, a half-second lag between where I moved and where his gaze actually followed. "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "I just need to find a way out. I've been looking for a long time." "Out of what?" He gestured, vaguely, back toward the wall he'd stepped through. "The hallways. There's more of them than you'd think. They don't connect the way hallways are supposed to. I keep finding rooms that look like this building, offices, floors, but they're never quite right, and I can never find the door that actually leads back to wherever I started." I didn't fully understand what he was describing, not in that moment, but something about the exhausted, hollow way he said. It made the hair on my arms stand up worse than any direct threat could have. This wasn't a man breaking into a building. This was something that had gotten lost somewhere I had no framework for understanding, and had finally, accidentally, found its way close enough to my ordinary, boring, 6 years uneventful hallway to step through into it. That's when the lights started flickering. Not the normal overnight flicker you get from old fluorescent tubes running past their expected lifespan. This was different. A pulse that ran the length of the hallway in both directions at once, and in the half-second of darkness between flickers, I could have sworn the hallway itself looked longer than it should have, stretching further than the fourth floor's actual dimensions allowed. "That's not good," the man said, and for the first time, real fear entered his flat, strange voice. "It's noticing we're talking. It doesn't like when the doors get used this way." "What's noticing?" "I don't know how to explain it to you," he said, urgency building now, his earlier stillness cracking into something closer to panic. "The place I've been walking through. It's not empty. There's something that keeps the hallways the way they are, and it doesn't like when someone actually finds a way back out. The lights flickered again, longer this time, plunging the hallway into several full seconds of total darkness before snapping back on. And when they did, the hallway looked wrong in a way I can't fully explain even now, the proportions subtly off. Doors along the corridor that I knew for a fact didn't belong to any office on this floor. And at the far end, where the hallway should have dead-ended at a stairwell I'd walked past 1,000 times, there was instead more hallway, stretching on further than the building's actual footprint should have allowed. "We need to move," the man said. "Now, before it closes back in." I didn't trust him. Not fully. Some part of me still screaming that this was exactly the kind of manipulation you're trained to watch for. But the alternative, standing still in a hallway that had just visibly stopped obeying the basic rules of the building I'd worked in for 6 years, felt worse than any risk that he might pose. "Which way?" I said. "Back toward the elevator. If the building's actual layout is still holding anywhere, it'll be closest to where people move through regularly. Doors that get used stay more solid. Ones that don't, like that server room, go soft first." We moved fast, the man keeping pace beside me with a strange, gliding quality to his stride that still didn't sit right. And behind us, I could hear something that I want to describe carefully because I've turned it over in my head constantly since that night. A sound like drywall stretching, fabric tearing slow and deliberate, the specific noise of something reshaping itself that had no business being able to reshape at all. "Don't look back," he said when I started to. Looking back at it makes it easier for it to find exactly where you are. I kept my eyes forward, flashlight beam bouncing wild off walls that felt subtly, wrongly elastic in my peripheral vision. And I swear the distance to that elevator, a stretch I could normally cover in under a minute, felt like it kept extending every time I thought we were close. The same handful of office doors passing by again and again, like the hallway had started looping back on itself. "It's not letting us out," I said, panic finally breaking. Through the professional calm I'd been clinging to since this whole thing started. "It will," he said, though I could hear the strain in his own voice now. "If we keep moving towards something real instead of something it's built. The elevator's real. It has to still be real because people use it every single day. Focus on that, nothing else." I fixed my mind on that elevator, the actual, physical elevator I'd ridden 1,000 times, cold metal doors, the specific hum it made on its way up, and I don't fully know if it was that focus that mattered or simple luck, but the hallway ahead of us finally, abruptly, snapped back into the shape I actually recognized. The elevator bank appearing exactly where it should have been all along, light steady and ordinary instead of pulsing wrong. We hit that elevator at a dead run, and I slammed the call button hard enough to bruise my palm. Both of us watching the hallway behind us with a dread that made every second the doors took to open feel unbearably long. Nothing emerged from that stretched, wrongly reshaping corridor, though the sound of tearing fabric and shifting drywall continued behind us right up until the elevator doors finally slid open and we threw ourselves inside. The man didn't get in with me. He stood at the threshold, one hand braced against the door to keep it from closing. Looking back down that hallway with an expression I recognized immediately, because I'd been wearing something close to it myself for the last several minutes. "You're not coming?" I asked. "I don't think I belong on your side of this," he said, quiet, something like resignation settling into his strange, flat voice. "I've been walking those hallways a long time. I don't think stepping into an elevator undoes that." "Then what happens to you?" He didn't answer directly, only stepped back from the elevator doors, letting them begin to close between us. "Thank you for talking to me," he said, right as the gap narrowed to nothing. Most people who see the doors just run. The elevator doors sealed shut, and I rode down to the lobby in a silence broken only by my own ragged breathing. And when the doors opened again, the lobby looked exactly blessedly ordinary. Fluorescent lights steady. The night's usual quiet holding without any trace of whatever had briefly unraveled 4 floors above me. My radio crackled back to life the instant I stepped out, dispatcher's voice coming through clear and unbothered, asking why I hadn't checked in on my last scheduled call. I gave them a report that left out most of what had actually happened, because I genuinely didn't know how to explain any of it in a way that wouldn't get me sent home on a psych evaluation, and I finished the rest of that shift on the ground floor, refusing every reason to head back upstairs until my replacement arrived at 6. I checked the maintenance logs the next day, out of a need to confirm at least one piece of what I'd experienced was real. Room 4C, sealed, welded shut, exactly as I remembered. No record of any breach or disturbance overnight. Nothing on any other guard's report to suggest anything unusual had happened on the 4th floor at all. I still work nights at Braddock Tower, though I've requested my rounds be adjusted to avoid that section of the 4th floor as much as the schedule allows, and I don't know if that man, if that's even the right word for what he was, ever found his own way fully out of wherever he'd been walking, or whether he's still out there somewhere, moving through hallways that only sometimes, briefly, brush up against ours. I think about what he said, right before those doors closed between us, more than I'd like to admit some nights. Most people who see the doors just run. I didn't run, not at first, and some part of me still isn't entirely sure whether that made things better or worse for either of us in the end.